So, hello, Bianca.
Oh, Brian.
So, you're such an integral member of what happens at the Source, being our lead yogi and our lead lecturer on our yoga teacher training, and that we're interviewing people to be able to display, who they are without people actually having to come here and experience it, is that so that people can see into our world and see who you are.
Yes.
Sounds like fun?
Yes.
So the first question is like your journey of like how you ended up, like whatever it is the highlights are for you from, like you were from Joburg originally, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So kind of just telling your story of about, how you arrived at the Source, what happened, what were the milestones and, that brought you here.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just do the highlights package because there's lots of
20 cities
stuff.
in 7 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I often think about the journey. I've always kind of find where I am right now and how I got here is often on my mind. Just also to remind myself how far we can actually come. But yeah, so the journey of yoga started as a physical thing. Just really wanted to do something with my body. I started out in a gym. This wonderful old lady sat on a stage and she ommed, and I thought she was stark raving mad. And I thought, geez, no, these people are cooked. I am out of here. So took a couple of months, and then somehow I found myself in Joburg at a studio, which is now called Indie Yoga, and Kerry was one of my first teachers. But I actually got there first through being pregnant with my second child, and I had a session of Kundalini Yoga, which I didn't even have an awareness around really tapping into my unborn child, which is quite sad, but I realized that in the second round. So after she was born, I knew that I had to go back to yoga. I knew it was something that I wanted to do. And I was just fascinated by the way I felt after yoga. So as opposed to when I stepped onto the mat and at the beginning of the practice, and then what was all of that happened and how I felt after the practice.
How did you feel after the practice?
I always felt completely different. It's not that it was even, it definitely was a feeling of more being connected to myself, but I always felt more at ease and more comfortable with getting into the day by starting my day with yoga. So I started practicing a lot, and I was very fortunate to have incredible teachers along the way. And then I went through quite a hectic or challenging time in my marriage, and was asked to look at myself, and it was hard, but somehow going back to my mat gave me that space to do that.
So just the yoga asana itself and the postures
at that stage,
and as like an exercise, just doing that actually was enough of an opening for you to start becoming self-reflective.
Yeah.
Wow.
And also just a place where I could find a little bit of solace and a little bit of sacred space to be me, and be quiet, actually. So it just, created space for me to reflect on where I was at, emotionally, energetically, all of that. But I think what happened was, because I had to really, so going through that challenging time with my ex-husband, I was drawn to yoga, I guess on some level almost as an escape, because it was a bit of an escape to get out of the real world and, you know, all the things that were coming at me.
Escaping your mind and escaping how you labeled things in your entire world, that you were able to create a space where all those labels fell away.
Just dissipate a little bit.
And some of the words you used is that you discovered silence, and that there was solace, and that there was time with you, and there was a release of some kind.
Yeah, release is definitely, that was there. You know, I was always fascinated by, still am, by Shavasana, by the space at the end of a practice where can really just allow myself to be, just to not have to do anything. So yeah, it was intriguing. I kept feeling intrigued to delve deeper into that and try and not understand it, because I don't think there was an ego. It was more of an intrigue as to what is this? How come I can feel amazing in Shavasana, or even sad, or even ecstatic? What was that? Just
by lying down and being with yourself after your physical practice, is that all kinds of interesting things started coming onto your physical, emotional, inner world radar that you found intriguing, and that you said that you still do. How does Shavasana, even today, surprise you or interest you or keep delivering?
Mostly, well, it's different. It's different every time. I can't say it's the same every time, but I think what it is it allows me to always check in and come back to seeing how far off the mark I am, as opposed to actually being connected. So giving myself space to be in Shavasana, without the words, without the thoughts, without the physical tension, and just to rest in myself.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
We'll come back to your yoga journey in the sense that, you know, you got more involved with yoga at some point, and there was a process there. But just a little sidebar is transformation. And that point in your life and before yoga, the delving into the human condition and facing yourself. Had you been doing any transformational work before your yoga, or during up to this stage in your yoga?
Well, I think, you know, it's interesting because as soon as you realize that you're doing transformational work, well, I realized I was doing transformational work. I didn't actually know it was called transformational work, by the way.
It was what?
I didn't know it was.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know it was transformational work. I just knew that there was change.
Yes.
So that there was a shift.
Something was happening.
Yeah, something was going on. I think there were times before that it was happening, but in a much more less conscious way.
So much more subtle. You can feel something, but you really didn't have...
Yeah, I mean, I trained in reflexology, and that kind of opened me to, we've got an energetic body, meridians that tell me what's going on physically, which actually have been a manifestation of
what attracted you to reflexology?
I knew that I wanted to work with the body, work with alternative ways of healing.
Okay.
So
did you do any other kinds of, other than reflexology, was there any other disciplines that you got engaged in around that time period?
Yeah, I did some I qualified as a reflexologist, and then I did an Antonia massage course, or I did aromatherapy. Actually, I did aromatherapy first, aromatherapy massage course, and that's also where some transformational changes took place, definitely. Then it was reflexology, and then I did an Antonia course, which actually was very profound, because that works very deeply with the energetic body and what we hold on to in our bodies in terms of shifting that. We worked a lot with color therapy, with angel oils. So it was a very powerful place. In fact, at that point in my life, it was too powerful. I didn't know how to manage it, actually.
What didn't you know how to manage? Was it the energy?
The response that I got from people. People were having amazing responses, and as much as I was very humbled by that, at the same time I was like, whoa, this this is freaking freaky.
Why? What was it? How
I was
was it
part
too
of
much?
that, and why was I part of that, and what's going on, and
So your abilities were beyond your understanding.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand. I think
you couldn't own it
the
yet.
nature of what I was doing, the full capacity. Yeah.
Well, that points to me is that you have a real natural. You have, well, the way I'll say it is that you have. Some people have. Really intuitive hands. They have beautiful hands with hands on, and being able to, I've had your massages, so in being able to touch people in a way that energizes them and reaches them in really deep and meaningful ways, and that's not something you can teach. That's something that is inherent and innate in people. So I think you're one of those people. So
yeah, well, I think that it's a privilege to be able to step into people's space, and whether it's a massage space, whether it's a yoga space, whether it's the heart space.
And it's one of the reasons why we love you, is that you do come from a place of being humble, and that you do see it as a privilege, and that you're just always serving. You come from a place of serving as opposed to a place of some people that have really amazing practices, and that you can see that they're at the front of the room, kind of like there's a bravado of look at what I can do, and that is really the antithesis of who you are, the opposite. Antithesis?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so too. The opposite anyway. Got beyond my vocabulary though for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, so then going back to yoga, is that then you had met Carrie, and that you had been, went back to yoga after your second child. So then what happened? How did you get even deeper?
Well, I think that it was a matter of there were a couple of she did at that stage did quite a few teacher trainings, and I used to see the teachers that were training practice in classes. And one of the teachers, I was really inspired by her, and through this challenge that my ex-husband and I faced, a teacher training happened to come up, and I just knew it was something that I had to do for a deeper understanding of the practice of yoga itself. I was fascinated by the philosophy, and there'd always be things thrown in a class, whether it was a Sanskrit word or a chant or some sort of philosophy around it, and I was like, oh, that's so beautiful, I want to know more about that. So firstly it was from that point of view, and I guess parallel to that was also just for my own yearning to heal, and I just knew that that's what I needed to do. I just knew that's something that I wanted to do. When
the yoga teacher training came up, when you enrolled in it, were you thinking, I want to be a yoga teacher trainer, or were you thinking that I'm just doing this for me?
I went in for me.
You went for you.
Just went into...
So with not really any intentions of being a teacher?
No.
Fascinating.
No. There was no... I didn't even realize that... I hadn't even looked into it very deeply. What I saw in front of me, the teachers that were practicing, and their kind of transformation, and chatting to them after classes, and it wasn't about the teaching at all. It was just about a healing. I knew that there was a healing, that I was fascinated by the discipline of being in a practice or in a space for 12 weeks, and how that would affect me, how I would respond to that. But also it was something for me. It was just a place that I knew that I had to go for me, and see how I come out on the other end. And
how did your yoga teacher training go?
It was incredible. I did it twice. I just promised myself when I stepped into that space to be open to absolutely everything that came my way, whether it was a challenge, whether it was a joy, whether it was a pain, whether it was discomfort, whatever it was, I was going to experience this in its full capacity. And there were definitely times where I thought, I don't know if I can do this. But those were fleeting. It was just, I think it was facilitated really beautifully by Kerry and just obviously the other teachers that were on the teacher training, to really be observant of yourself. But, you know, because it was in a group space as well, I really felt also supported, because I'm not the only one going through all of that. We were all going through it. So it was this beautiful bond that you could tap into very early on in a group situation where, you know, we're all kind of in this, and whatever I'm experiencing, probably 2 or 3 are also experiencing on a different level or the same level or whatever it was. So it was absolutely life-changing. It was possibly the best thing I ever did for myself.
Just to go back a little bit in that, is that you talked about you were going into it completely open, no matter what happened for you. So I'm just curious, in what ways were you stretched?
So I was stretched from a physical point of view, because we had to engage in a self-practice every day, pretty much for 12 weeks. You could rest, take a rest day, but generally we had to practice every day, and that was it wasn't so much a strength thing. It's not so much, it was more of a mental thing, that every day I had to make place or create space for myself to get on the mat. So that was probably that was the entry level.
Yes.
My first mindset was, oh my gosh, I've got to do this every single day. And there were days when it was easy and days when it was really difficult. And then the days that you skip, which are like, then the whip comes out and the self-judgment comes out. And so that was fascinating.
Not happy doing it and not happy not doing it.
No, yeah. And then from
which has its own set of lessons.
Yes. And then from the philosophy, then we had, there was also we had to adopt a sattva eating lifestyle, which is a whole another story, but that again was a whole mental thing. What
was the heart of that, just so people understand what that means?
Well, we had to take out anything in our diet that was either going to stimulate your mind, your energy, your body, or create a dullness or a lethargy in your mind.
So chocolate and coffee were gone.
Chocolate, coffee, anything stimulating.
And then on the other side, what was like carbohydrate or sugar?
Mostly foods that are grown underground. So anything that grows in the dark, other than carrots, funny enough. But so your mushrooms, potatoes,
nuts.
No, the nuts we were allowed, funny enough. So sattva is really taking out stimulants, and lethargy, you want to try and create a calm, easy mind.
Interesting.
Peaceful, harmony mind.
And what was how were you stretched with that?
Salt.
Okay. And you survived, did you?
I survived saltless for 12 weeks.
Okay. Are you saltless today?
Certainly not.
How silly of me.
No, not a chance.
Okay.
What I did, I mean, it was fascinating. It was just a 12 weeks of watching yourself.
So coming from, the how you were stretched in that, so from the end of your courses to when you arrived at the source, is there any other real milestones between there and there, either with yoga or with your inner work, your transformation, your inner world? Any highlights in between there of what really shaped you?
There was definitely, I mean, I often feel that this journey with yoga changes all the time. In itself, it transforms. So, at one point I was teaching like 13 classes a week, practicing 6 times a week, full on and in it. And then I got divorced and we moved to Cape Town and had to come back to a corporate lifestyle, which was absolutely hell. But I had to do it. I had no other way of getting through what I had to get through. I had to support myself. And
your children.
And my children. And just this change from Joburg to Cape Town.
Yes.
And so what happened was I fell off the mat completely.
As it happens.
Yeah.
To the best of us.
It was actually, it was painful, but at the same time, when I look back, it had to happen. And
those are the places we learn things anyway.
It was totally.
What did you learn about falling off the mat? What did it teach you that you can use today?
That it was okay.
Well, it's okay.
No, but for me that was a big thing.
That was a big thing. Yeah.
As a teacher that took my teaching very seriously and my practice very seriously and my lifestyle, yogic lifestyle, which I had this lovely bubble around.
Yes.
to not practice, to not teach, to not engage. Even in eating, I started eating meat, which I hadn't for the last
I didn't know that you started. Why did you start eating meat? What occurred? Like, was it a physical thing, or is it just happened?
No, I said fuck it to everything. I was just like, I felt like I'd been holding myself in a place for so long, and I was also in a very, very tumultuous relationship.
Yes.
And it was I felt like I was holding it all together, and I just wanted to dump everything.
You let go of all the discipline, and you just let it so that you could actually just float a little bit and not actually have a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
So when did you become, I didn't know that occurred. So you're vegan now.
Yeah.
So what happened in between eating food and veganism? What was your thought process where you re-embraced being vegan?
So then, so falling off the mat, literally metaphysically and physically. I didn't practice for nearly a year. No, not a year. I mean, I went to a couple of classes, but not a lot. And I didn't teach for nearly a year. And then, I started, when I say eating meat, I literally, if I had 3 or 4, pieces of meat in the 8 months, it was a lot. But still, it wasn't, And
that's really interesting.
Yeah. But it got to a point where, and I relate this, and I'm going to give this back to David Life, who made it quite real for me. Is I got to a place when I was fed up with myself. I was just so fed up with myself, just not actually paying attention.
Yes.
Like I was paying attention to the fact that I wasn't paying attention, but I just got to a place where if I don't get onto the mat today, I don't know what's going to happen. I was just.
But you're full.
Yeah, that's
There's something.
exactly
There's something really important. Human beings learn a lot in crises. I think we learn in crises, and there's really an interesting time in people's lives when they're sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Exactly, it's exactly what it
and
was.
then you have no choice but to make life changes and refocus. Like sometimes it's looking inside, sometimes it's being disciplined about your outer world. It's a lot of different things, but it's fascinating to me that that's generally what everybody has to go through. Is okay, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, and just that those same thoughts, like a hamster on a wheel,
Yes.
Like, oh, you're eating meat again, look at that. Oh, okay, well, okay.
A little bit of self-judgment.
You haven't practiced again, look at that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was just getting tired of being so judgmental on myself, or actually not even giving myself space to allow. So, yeah.
Which is very transformation. That is like one of the first steps of transformation, is allowing yourself to be human and allowing yourself to be who you are and watching what's going on. That's how we learn and change. If you're judgmental, then if we judge things, then we stick our head in the sand, and you're stuck with that for the rest of your life. So beautiful.
Well, I do think I stuck my head in the sand for a while, but
it happens. That's, it's part of the process.
Yeah. So and then I actually went to go and I asked, I know 2 teachers that came down to Cape Town, and they run a studio, had a studio in Woodstock, and I asked them if I could be on their sub list, which they allowed me to be, which was awesome. So I very slowly started getting back into teaching, and fortunately the revolting place that I used to work at this corporate space, also, I got to a place where I was just fed up. I just took a look around and I was just like, it's enough. I don't need to be surrounded by this energy, stepping into this every day. Like, how long are you going to actually be here? How long are you going to allow this to take place in your life to, what is it going to take to make a change? Those are the questions that started coming up. Like, is this where I want to be for the rest of my life, on this little hamster wheel? I started making changes. As hard and as tough as they were, I had to reach out and ask for help. I reached out to a friend that I knew in the industry, and I got another job, which was slightly less chaotic. And and then I had seen the source. Funny enough, I was selling marlers for a friend of mine in Joburg, and she had said to me, not even in this time that I'm speaking of, actually probably about a good 6 months before, she had said to me, there's the source in Bergfleet, and they are having a conference. Go and chat to them about selling the malas, and I missed that completely. I was in my place. I was just like, oh, don't feel like doing it. Let me rather just put my head in the sand. And then I remembered that once I started making these changes, changed my job, started teaching again, I remembered the source. I need to go and see what they're about. So I went onto the website, and I didn't realize that this space, this road that we drive up and down, I drive up and down a lot, that has yoga and Pilates on the fence, was the source. So when I put the two together, I was like, oh my God, you drove past that nearly every day and you didn't take note. But it's all about timing. And yeah, I actually approached Renee, firstly to sell malas. And then I said to her, I am looking at getting back into teaching a little bit more than I am at the moment. And obviously the source is also much closer to where I was subbing in Woodstock. And yeah, I did 1 or 2 classes here, and when I walked into this space, it was like, I always say this to you, it was like coming home. It just felt so easy and so comfortable. And I was saying to Annie this morning, like, to walk into this space and know that this is a place where it's not even work. It's not work. It's passion. It's creation. It's like, and it's just a very, very easy, comfortable place to be. And yeah, so
what brings me to one of the questions is, so what is the difference that the source is? So it's hard not to be comparative to what's already out there.
Yeah.
So I guess I actually am asking a comparative question. So what is the difference that the space is, the physical space, the people that are here, the kind of yoga that we focus on? What is the difference for you?
Yeah.
Why here?
So I've gone to a few yoga spaces in Cape Town because I'm from Joburg, and I need to go and see what's going on and, see where I fit. And, yoga, there's definitely a place for everyone, and there's a studio for everyone. But it's the only place that I have experienced in this beautiful city of ours where you are welcomed as you are. There is an authenticness that travels from the top down, and I need to accentuate that because I think it's really, really important to honor that from Renee, from you, Brian, from Annie, who run pretty much the source. Is that I feel like when I talk to Annie, when I talk to Brian, when I talk to Renee, that I'm getting the real deal, the person, and there's no there's no veils here. What you see is what you get.
No pretense.
Yeah, and it certainly from Annie and from you, Brian, there's definitely I just feel comfortable. I feel that I can be myself. I don't have to there's no there's space for everything. Actually.
And there's a place for who you truly are. Do you feel that?
Yeah, 100%, definitely.
And then how does that translate into
There's
the yoga?
There's an acceptance. That's what it is. There's just an acceptance of who you are. Yeah.
We attract really amazing people.
Yeah. And the other thing that I love, I know.
You're just going to accept that wholly. Yeah. Good.
Is that there's creation here. It doesn't, I can come in or have a conversation with you today, and in 2 days' time there's something new that's come up, and then something else is being created. It may not come to fruition, but there's space for that. So there's never, I don't feel like there's a sense of like this is how we're doing things, and it's owned and it's controlled.
Yes.
That's complete, here we go with the word again, antithesis, the opposite of that. It's like, oh, that's amazing, what do you do? Let's try and create something, collaborate that, or work together on that. And there's this space for for whatever the potential of that could be. And whether it comes to fruition or not is also okay.
But we live in possibility.
Yeah.
We're not about dogma. We're not about the rules. We're not about who said what was great. What are we creating together?
Yeah.
We're the people in the building. What works for us?
Yeah.
And how can we better ourselves every day?
Yeah, but also tapping into your, even this, from a student point of view, from a client point of view, from a trainer point of view, you know, I feel like there's always an inquiry from the top down. I'm going to say that again. And I don't want to do kind of levels or different, you know, what's the word? Separations or anything like that. But I always feel like there's an inquiry all the time as to what it is that an individual or individuals can bring and allow to collaborate. Yeah.
That's and create together. Is that, and the inquiry is really, I'm glad that you're using those words, because that's where I'm coming from is being a learning organization. And I think transformation, or the inner work, or exploring your human condition, and not being your fear, growth decisions versus fear decisions, that process is really like about is being curious, is inquiring into your own life, and constantly looking at how I can improve me. How can I improve my experience? How can I live in more joy? How can I work with other people? We're better when the more we can be synergistic together and use the energy that you are together, you're building something that's going to be way better than what one person or a small group of people decide it's going to be. So yes, the inquiry is really key. That I'm glad that's filtering out. I don't know. We've never had this conversation like this before. So. Okay.
Full of surprises.
Yeah. So then I have two other items. Is that, what was your awakening moment? What was it that you would attribute to that when you were in your travels, is the time that you would consider this is the moment? What occurred for you that you went, the aha? What was the circumstances of your awakening moment?
I think I have two. I don't know if there were one, and it's quite an interesting question, because I still have awakening moments. I had one this weekend.
Well, I kind of meant like when you go from being unconscious and that you don't know that you're unconscious. That's usually the first one. And then you're unconscious, and then you become conscious that you're unconscious, and then that's your awakening moment of, and usually shapes the rest of your life that you want to be self-reflective. And the Greek, I don't know if it was Socrates or Plato, but an unexamined life isn't worth living. Is like, it's a little dramatic, but the point is that your life is you have so much more joy in your life when you're actually looking at who you truly are.
So the ones that come straight to mind, I think those are the best ones to use, is actually in my training in Antonia massage. I had not just 4 months previously, I'd had a miscarriage, and I was lying on the bed, and my trainer literally just put her hands on my lower back, and I could just feel her energy just light up my whole body. And I know it sounds ridiculously esoteric, but it's what happened. And I just burst into tears, and I cried for 4 days. And I realized then that I hadn't looked at myself or anything that hadn't really taken cognizance of looking after myself and looking within how that had impacted my little soul. So that kind of was like, wow, again, it was what is this? What is this that just opened me up to all this emotion or sensations or whatever it was. So that was the first one, and the second big powwow, I guess, was when
what was the conclusion you drew from that experience?
The conclusion was that I hadn't paid attention.
And that was a further conclusion that you needed to.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That I definitely had to take a little bit more of a deeper look and listen to what was going on inside. My
Beautiful.
thoughts, sensations, definitely. And then the next one, which was a little bit more painful, a little bit more dark, but was when my ex-husband and I went through this challenge, and I had to face myself in terms of that maybe I wasn't the most nurturing, attentive wife, and that I had to look at my part in this place that we found ourselves in, and it was sore. It was very, very painful.
So looking at my part of what wasn't working in my life.
Yeah.
Well,
how did I get here? How did we get here?
Just out of curiosity, was there any part before that where you were going, I'm good, it's your fault? Was that happening?
Before I got to this point?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, when it all came out, I was just like, oh, well, you're the dus and I'm the treasure, and I'm leaving and you can do whatever you want. Yeah, because I'm the good one, and then, I guess it was also just a matter of, but hold on, there's I'm also in this. It's not just about him. It's also about me.
Yeah.
And then it's okay, well, what is it about you? Well, actually, I'm in this relationship, and what spurred him on to do that? Doesn't just come from nowhere.
Yeah, nothing happens in a vacuum.
Nothing.
And people taking accountable for their lives about what impacts they're making on themselves and others is really an important place in transformation, because you actually start going, okay, I'm going to take accountability for what I've done in my life. And human beings learn in crises, so both of those things occurred, and that's very common in a transformational process. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, so those were the two big ones, but at the same time, Brian, I think that practice is, for me, is every day. Those little awakenings they happen. Some days there's no check-in for me. Some days I just glide through the day and suddenly realize when I go to sleep, geez, like you actually were slightly unconscious today.
Yeah, automatic pilot.
Yeah, and that's okay. But generally, I think they happen. I tend to use everyone does it differently, I guess, but I tend to use my feeling, what happens in my body as an indicator. So when somebody says something, or I feel something, and I'm like, okay, what is that? Let's unpack that a little bit and see what it's all about. So I think those little awakenings are...
What was the conclusion that you made from the second, your part in what wasn't working with your relationship? What conclusion did you make when you started being accountable for yourself? What happened after that? How did you use that in your
it was
life?
An interesting journey after that, because I first owned my part, but then what happened was I freaking took the whole thing on.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So then it was all my fault.
Yes.
So it shifted from being all his fault to being all my fault.
And that's very normal as well.
And then overcompensating all of that and handing my power over completely.
I'm such a bad person. Look what I did.
And geez, I need to suffer now, and I got to put myself through this. And, but funny enough, interestingly enough, in that it was literally congruent. I started my teacher training. And so beautifully, the teacher training reminded me to still honor myself and still to take cognizance of my little light, as opposed to putting it out completely.
And it's okay to be human. It's okay to be unconscious. It's okay to be where you were. It's probably a good idea to move towards consciousness. But it's okay.
It's more empowering, actually, to move into more of a conscious...
Which means more joy in your life, which means that you're actually got your hands on the steering wheel of what's going to driving in places you want to be, creating the life that you want to have, and living in more joy.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so I've come to the conclusion recently that I've been looking at a lot of transformational material and working with a lot of different people over the years. And incidentally, you read something today in your yoga class, in the beginning of your yoga class. Was that Eckhart Tolle, by the way?
No, it was out of a book called Deep Yoga.
Could you grab that just so you can read it?
Yeah.
While I'm saying, so the thing that I've noticed is that there's a very important place in transformation, in the inner work, where you actually stop and face yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I'm going to, in the future, be emphasizing the work that we do here, because we do a lot of transformational work here and workshops, and it's integrated into our yoga teacher training and into our classes. So is the inner work. But there is a very distinct place that people can be really involved in transformation or yoga and creating a lot of light for themselves, pranayama, meditation, the sauna itself, yoga nidra. I mean, all of those things are creating light. But at some point when you turn and face yourself is a slightly different practice. The light helps you turn and face yourself. So what was that you read this morning?
So it doesn't actually, it's from the 8 Limbs of Yoga by Bhavaram. And he says, the journey of self-transformation and spiritual awakening takes great courage. First, we must face ourselves and acknowledge the circumstances we have created, which have caused our suffering. We must then resolve to take action and change these circumstances. Which is, yeah, that's transformation in a nutshell.
But it's a very specific point, because I've noticed that there's a lot of people that you can, have transformational interests and not actually stop and face yourself.
Yeah.
So that there is a point that people either come to or don't come to, and that's one of the things that I want to emphasize. So what is, because we've also talked about you putting a course together in regards to people facing themselves. So what would you present? What are your 2 bits in regards to people, like the importance of stopping and facing yourself, which really is a part of like not putting your emotions under the carpet anymore, dealing with your negative self-talk, that your whatever experience of lack that's automatic, all of the shadow, virtually that you're facing your shadow as well as everything else. So what's your take on what's important?
I think for me, in terms of that transformational, workshop or course or whatever it is,
or lifestyle,
it's about not being afraid to look at that dark side. It took me it still does every now and again. I'm like, okay, let's have a look at this shadow. What is it? This weekend it was a deep attachment to something, which is, I had to look at that neediness. Absolutely, so what I'm trying to say. The
context is your relationship, though.
Yeah. But that shadow or that pain or that misery, whatever you want to call it, is such a beautiful. It has such a beautiful gift on the other side, and that for me is how I've come to almost enjoy transformational work. As hard as it can maybe be to look at yourself and acknowledge that there's parts of yourself that maybe you don't even like, those parts are actually trying to show you the gift in becoming or realizing a deeper potential of what you can be. So that shadow work for me are almost like, it's actually part of the toolbox. It's part of my toolbox to evolve as a more connected being, connected to myself, connected to others, connected to nature. Is that transformational or that shadow work, because transformational work cannot be without the shadow.
It's dealing with yourself in wholeness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not about, I can be quite a possessive person. Well, actually, it can instill rage in me, and it can. You've got to get through all the layers.
And that's just who I am.
Yeah.
See, that's the people who actually have their fears and their ego that's well entrenched in their life, like it is in all of ours, but that's just who I am. Is when you see that something is based on fear and therefore control or something like that, is that you actually go, oh, I need to face this.
Yeah.
And that you said, like, the difficulty of looking at these things and facing it, is it that, like you said, you kind of look forward to it because you can see that on the other side of it is that there's actually some kind of flip into that there's a better possibility of who you are.
Yeah.
And that when you look at the things that we don't really want to look at, and you, like my experience is when you actually have a good look at them, there's a lie in it. There's something that you believe that isn't true that you have an investment into, and your fears have an investment into. But if you really look, that's the whole point of transformation, is looking at these things and realizing that they're actually not true. And when you come to that realization, then that's only then when you faced it and you're willing to deal with it and accept whatever's
looked
there
at it full on.
and look at it full on, and that and you take the risk that you could drown or be beat up or be mortally wounded. Is that at least the first time that all of a sudden once you see the lie in it, it flips over to that it virtually the heart of it turns into nothingness, and that the possibility of who you truly are becomes obvious. And there's habits, like, just because you've had the realization doesn't mean that it's exited your life. There's more work of having a practice of remembering what's true about yourself.
I think what's quite key is that, it's I've done this, where had my little rose-tinted glasses on, and you think that you're doing work because you realize that, you might have a little shadow that says whatever, I don't know, you're not good enough, but you know what, it's okay, I'm going to breathe and I'm going to be okay, and I'm actually fine. It's actually taking, I think that can be a little bit of a trap, especially in the yoga world, that there's work to do there. It's not about just going, oh well, I see that about myself, I'm okay, and I'm going to breathe and I'm going to be fine. It'll keep coming back. That's what my experience with it is. It'll keep coming back until maybe you again get to the place where you're sick and tired of it keep coming back, or that you actually find ego's got its kind of back up against the wall and you have to look at it. You actually have to take a deep look. So either you get pushed there because you don't want to look at it, or I didn't want to look at it, or I can go, okay, I've seen it already. I know what this is, but what is it really? And unpack it a bit more.
Yeah, I like what you said is that if you, okay, well, this came up for me, I'm not good enough, or I'm envious, or I'm jealous, or I'm selfish or greedy, or whatever it is that comes up that you don't want to look at, but it's okay, and I'm just going to breathe my way through it and go do my yoga. And that's okay. Like, you can do that sometimes, but know that it does keep coming back. And it's really interesting is that it comes back as a little wave and then a bigger wave over time. And the more you resist it and not want to look at it, you push it back. And eventually, depending on, because life keeps going, you need to look at this, and it's bigger and bigger. And then it's a tsunami and picks you up and throws you around. And that's when your ego brings you down to your knees. And you actually have to go, okay, I actually need to look at this now. And transformation is generally about not having to have the tsunami be the thing that has us look inside. The second a wave comes in and we're like, okay, there's something I need to look at. You get better at it because you're not afraid of it anymore. The only reason why we don't deal with it is because we're afraid of that information in some kind of way. And all transformation that I've seen is absolutely every last thing that you're afraid of dissipates into nothing because it really is based on lies. So any last words? And that was very beautiful about, transformation. That's why we're so happy to have you here. And just a little of once again, I think I tell you this weekly, but you're the most integrated yoga lecturer and teacher that we have, is that you do so much of the inner world stuff and the breath with the asana when you're leading your classes, that you're so much about bringing the inner world and as many facets to who somebody is to aligning who they truly are. So it's an absolutely beautiful thing. And we're so happy to actually have you here and be helping us be able to move in a direction and being willing to put your tools and heart on the table and say, okay, here's my stuff. What have you got? Where we're really interested in putting them together, and the power of what we can do together is always greater than any individual. So that's what we're looking into. And you're welcome.
I'm very honored to be here.
You deserve every last bit of kudos that we give you. You deserve every last bit of it. So there.
Thank you.
Any last words about, the source, or about this? Like, if there's something you want to cap this off with?
I just have every day that I teach in this space, I have gratitude. And I don't just mean that because it's not something I'm just saying. Honestly, it's so deep in my cells of having a place to come to that is literally a home. And, you know, I don't know who's going to listen to this. I don't know how far it's going to reach. But if there's a yearning within, and there's a place where you want to be accepted and find a community of people that are authentic and real, then this is a place that I would recommend to anybody. Whether you come and practice here 2 times a week, whether you come and have a cup of coffee and just talk about what it is that you do, or collaborate in any space or form, it's just, yeah, I wouldn't... Being away from this space, I actually feel it. I actually feel that I haven't been here. It's beautiful. It's such a beautiful place, because it fills me up. It fills up my cup. It fills up my soul. It fills up my energy. I use this space as a place to revitalize, to re-energize, and also a place to just be, and a place to just be who I want to be and accepted in every way that I am. I can come here as a rat bag, and I can come here as a light. It's all okay.
Be seen for who you are.
Yeah.
And hopefully, you know, encouraging each other to be our greatest self.
Yeah, always.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dee.
That brings us to the end of our interview.
Awesome.
Thank you.